All right. Good Monday, oh, there's Mike Irwin. Look at that. There we go. Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. You know, Mike, it's a good Monday. Most people are like, I have the case of the Mondays, but if you're a Razorback fan today, that case looks like a winning one with the way that teams are going. Let's talk about it. Baseball, number 1 ranked this week. Basketball, men's basketball, number 12, number 13, depending on what poll you look at. You have the women's basketball team at number 13. So if you cover and you follow Arkansas Razorbacks, it's a good start to the month of March.
Yeah, you almost find yourself kind of wondering, wait a minute, what's going on here? Surely something, it's that old Petrino thing. Everything was rolling with Petrino, and then all of a sudden the motorcycle wreck, and it just all came off the rails. Hopefully nothing like that will happen this time, but I do find it interesting that just about a month ago there were some wacky people on the internet, social media, wanting Eric Musselman gone, and now Arkansas's big problem this year when the season is over is going to be try to figure out a way to keep him, because other schools will come after him based on what the season Arkansas is having. And if there's a school out there that he's really got his eye on, and we don't know, but I mean, look who could open up. North Carolina could open up. Duke could open up. Minnesota could open up. Places where he might, Kansas, what if that opens up?
There's some talk on social media about Minnesota specifically that, the university up there looking at Eric Musselman as a candidate to try to pull, because that's where he grew up. His dad obviously coached in Minnesota for a long time, and he, spent some time, a lot of his younger life up there in Minnesota. So that could be a real threat if you want to categorize it as one. But then you also look at how much him and his family have so quickly and so easily integrated into this community and have been a big part of this community. It would be hard to leave.
Yeah, but we don't know them that well. We don't know what's in his head.
Yeah.
I just, again, think it's interesting that you go from, maybe this guy doesn't need to be here. And this is with a few fans, not all of them by any stretch of the imagination. But now you got to figure out a way to keep him here.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to get a big raise, and that's going to be tough because of COVID. But I got to believe the guy that hired him, Hunter Yurachek, and who, by all accounts, Hunter Yurachek said he got his name, he called him up, and by the time the conversation was over, he knew this was the guy, because Musselman sold him on the fact that he didn't just want a job, he wanted the Arkansas job.
Yeah.
So hopefully he still feels that way.
That's right. How do you think this team, talking about men's basketball right now, and don't worry, we're going to talk baseball because it's a big deal that they're number 1 right now, though it's very early in the season, got to this point, Mike? Again, they haven't lost a game since that Alabama game where they get basically run out of Tuscaloosa, lost by 31 points, but since then have been on an SEC win streak. They jump into the rankings at 22. Then we see them go to 20, and then after beating Alabama and LSU this past week, they're now at 12.
Well, they didn't have Justin Smith when they lost most of those games. They had him back for the Tennessee game, but he was just back. He's made a big difference, but I just think a lot of the freshmen are developed. Devo Davis, he doesn't look like a freshman now. You look at him and you try to project him next year. People are already comparing him to Sidney, an in-state guy that can do all this amazing stuff. So he's come on. Jalen Williams has come on as a consistent guy that can come in the paint, defend the paint, draw charges, block shots, alter shots, score, shoot from the 3, shoot the 3 ball, can do all this stuff. So you combine those two guys, and Connor Vanover has games in which he's very effective. It really depends on the opponent. So you've got all of that. You've always had Moses Moody, he's not going to score 15, 20 points every game, but he does other things to help you win. And this is just a deep basketball team. It's a team that it's developed into a team where a lot of guys can beat you. And the big problem they had early in the year was they relied too much on three-pointers. And a lot of teams like Alabama and LSU were perfectly content to let them do that because this is not a great three-point shooting team. And the story to me of this whole season is how Eric Musselman took these guys, and he does this thing which is just weird for a basketball coach. He has a playbook.
Yeah.
Really? I thought that was a football thing. And he adds to his playbook. He revealed yesterday in a Zoom interview he's still adding plays to the playbook.
Yeah.
So they have all these set plays. And if you look at the LSU game, the Alabama game, and you watch the way they work the ball, and they very quietly have become the #1 team in the SEC in assists. That's how you score points inside. You've got the ball moving, you've got people that can pass, spot people that are open, but some of it is called plays that they send in there, and so they're running a play. And Eric said, we add a new play every week, and it's really funny when we start running our new play that no one has ever seen. It's amazing to listen to the other coaches because they'll be over there going, play. You gotta stop that, and they don't have a clue what they're talking.
They also have a book for pregame speeches too. Yeah, so I mean, you really can't count Eric Musselman on anything when it comes to being prepared and having his basketball team on the point.
Guy to be around. He always has fun, and now he has fun when he wins. He's not a very good loser. We all know that. He's really mad.
He does.
Keeps his head down. Doesn't want to talk.
He knows that too. So we're not saying anything he doesn't know. Look, Alabama basically solidified themselves as the #1 team. They won the regular season in the SEC this weekend with their win. So Alabama will be the #1 seed in the SEC tournament coming up next week. Arkansas, take care of business. You're the #2 seed in the tournament, which is a seed that I don't think that they've had in quite a while. It's been a while since they've been the #2 seed in the tournament. And then you have a really good possibility and a really good road, obviously, because you don't have to face #1 if they get that far until the SEC championship game. Do you see Arkansas winning an SEC championship tournament title this year, Mike?
I think it could happen. They're going to have to continue to play well like they have been, and then maybe some things happen on the other side. Maybe you get a Kentucky knocking off an Alabama and having a really, we've seen Kentucky on a given night, they can beat anybody, but on a given night, they can look really bad too.
Yeah.
So maybe you get some teams knocked out there that would give you trouble, and you'd end up not having to play somebody that would match up well against you. It's all the way the draw works out. But it's fun. It's fun to go into this thing knowing now that you're going to be the #2 seed in the conference tournament, and you'll get some respect. And then if you continue to win, you're probably going to get at least a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, and maybe a 3 seed. And so that helps you in the NCAAs too. We got a question on Ask Mike today. How far can they go? Well, there's no way to know how far they'll go, because you'd have to look at the bracket for one thing to see who they get paired with. But I think they've got a chance at being a Sweet 16 team this year, and I think the fans would love that.
You know, I can't, as a mom, and you say how far can they go and not think about Moana. That's just I don't know if anyone else there's kids watching Moana right now, but that's the thing. And every time you say that, I just think about her on top of a boat singing in the ocean. So I'm over here laughing in my head as I can't believe I'm thinking about Moana as we talk about men's basketball. All right, before we talk about baseball real fast, women, they start the SEC tournament this week. You know, we were talking earlier while we were setting all this thing up with Nick. And by the way, Nick is our new guy, and we're really excited to introduce you to him coming up either later this week or next week. But it is incredible, Mike, that you have a women's basketball team ranked 13th in the country, and they are a 6 seed in the women's basketball tournament, or a 5 seed in the women's basketball tournament for the SEC.
That's how tough the league is. Now, honestly, they did get off to a bad start, and they've been making up ground like Arkansas's men did. But it's just a really tough league, and you can be really good and still finish, as the 5 seed. But, on the other hand, what does that mean once they get outside the SEC and they're in the NCAA tournament? I think they might have a better chance of winning more games than the men because of the way the whole thing is structured. It's just all loaded up into the SEC.
Yeah, and it's pretty incredible. Again, Mike has even said this in past, Mike Neighbors, that the SEC tournament is much harder than the NCAA tournament is because of the way that this league is stacked. And so we'll see how the women do. They start their run, and we've seen them do it the past couple of years where they've made that run in the SEC tournament. They'll start Thursday against Ole Miss at 7:30, and so if they win that, they can continue to move on. But big week for the women as their regular season is done. Postseason play is upon them. All right, now let's get to baseball. You sweep SEMO. You're now 7-0 on the season, Mike, and you're the #1 team in the country according to 2 publications, one of those being D1 Baseball. What do you think?
Well, if you'll remember yesterday on the pig trail, we felt like they would be #1 in a couple of these polls. And I posed the question, has that ever happened before? Because I honestly couldn't remember. And since then, a couple of things have come out. And apparently they were number one in either 2010 or 2009. I get these two mixed up, but they were apparently number one in the preseason and then lost maybe in the first 2 or 3 games of the season. So they were very briefly a number one in the preseason, and then in another year, and it could have been 2012 or 09 again. I'm not sure which is which. They won a game maybe in the middle of the season, and they were already highly ranked, and that briefly elevated them to number one. It's hard to stay number one in college baseball because in football, you can be Alabama and you can go undefeated. You can win, 10, 11 regular season games in a normal year, and you can stay number one the whole year because you don't lose. Baseball teams don't go on those kind of winning streaks. It's a different sport. So you're going to lose games, and when you do, there's so many other good teams behind you that you're going to not stay number one. So I don't think Arkansas stays number one forever. It would be nice if they don't drop below the top 5, if they're in the top 5 all year, and they might get back to number one again.
Yeah.
What I said earlier is that I think the real thing that would be really totally cool is if you become the number one seed in the entire NCAA baseball tournament.
Yeah.
The field of 64, you're number one. That would be something else. And maybe that can happen this year.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Again, you could be a top 8 national seed. It means you're going to host until you go to Omaha if you keep winning. And so that would be cool. But yeah, being number one, really at the end of they always talk about it's better to be number one at the end of the year than the beginning of the year. It's very early in the season. We're 2 weeks into baseball season, but no one is going to complain about being number one right now.
The concern I had after that first week, when they went 3-0 against some really good teams in Arlington, and the concern I had was that their starting pitching wasn't. Paulette started and pitched well, but their starting pitching wasn't all that good. It was the bullpen that was fabulous, and then their hitting was so-so. They seemed to be able to come up with the timely hits when they needed them, but you were concerned. They came out of Arlington with a 230 batting average. That's way too low for a team that has these kind of expectations. But now they come back to Fayetteville, and they struggle in the first game, and then they explode in these next 3 games. And the team batting average is up around 270, 280 now, so it's really gone up.
Yeah.
You had Robert Moore in a slump. He was batting like 140, and now he's up to 280. You had Christian Franklin was in that big slump early, and he's now hit 3 home runs. The team, I think, has maybe 11 home runs in, 7 games, 8 games. So it's all looking good right now. The concern I had has kind of gone away a little bit. It looks like now they always had guys that were hitting, but they had some gaps. Robert Moore not hitting. Also, you've got some people we've seen Dave Van Horn shift this lineup a little bit. He even took Casey Opitz out for one game and had his freshman catcher in there, and then they had to do it in the game yesterday because Opitz ran out.
Golly, that collision was wild at first base.
And he ended up having to be taken out of the game as a precaution. And then Matt Goodhart, he didn't bat in Arlington and didn't bat the first game of the SEMO series, and then he comes back and hits a home run.
Yeah.
So everything, they seem to be clicking better up and down the lineup, and that was the concern I had. You don't have to be concerned about their defense. It's been fabulous. Yeah. Robert Moore's been amazing at second.
How about Jalen Battles, that shortstop? The arm is incredible.
He's got a cannon for him.
Yeah.
He can go to his right and turn around and throw a ball 95 miles an hour across the infield. The third baseman is solid, and they've got more than one person that can play third and play it well. The outfield appears to be good. They're just not really making errors and making mistakes. Honestly, when I looked at SEMO, I felt like they had pretty good pitching and decent hitting. The big difference between those two teams was the defense. They had a lot of mistakes in that game, and Arkansas didn't make any.
Got to ask you, Mike, obviously week 1, we didn't see Connor Nolan or Patrick Wicklander, who were 2 starters from a year ago. We got to see them in relief this weekend. What did you think of them?
Well, neither one of them gave up an earned run. Nolan didn't.
Not too bad, huh?
Nolan gave up an unearned run.
Yeah.
It wasn't his fault. But Wicklander has yet to give up any runs, earned or unearned. So both of them, I wouldn't be surprised to see at least one of them back in the rotation by SEC play. I still think, there's just going to be some changes in that starting rotation. I just think it's going to happen.
Van Horn said it was going to take a few weeks.
Yeah, Zebulon Vermillion still looks to me like a closer. He looks like a guy who's out there starting who has a closer's mentality. So you could shift him back to being a closer, then you got two closers, you know.
Do you remember, I feel like Zebulon Vermillion right now, again, you make that point. When Zach Jackson in 2015, they went to Omaha. He was their closer. They won that game against Missouri State, and they went to Omaha in 2015. Then he came back and he wanted to be a starter, and it was kind of different and it was off. And not saying that Zach did a bad job per se, but it was, like you said, a closer who wants to be a starter, but really he's a closer. Do you see a little bit of that as Zeb too?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll still see. But what I'm saying is they have so many options now. They're going to have 2 or 3 really good closers. They've got the bullpen is just amazing. Yeah, the way these guys just come in and just keep it going. Now we're still early, you know. You can always hit rough spots. Yeah. But again, the only concern I had was kind of hitting up and down the lineup, which we thought initially was going to be the big strength of this team. And through the first few games, it wasn't. Now it's looking a lot better. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we've talked men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, all ranked in the top 15, really, in their respected polls. But you can't not say, hey, what's up to the softball team? They had a great weekend as well. The men and women's indoor track team continue to win. Again, Lance Harder and Chris Bucknam just collect hardware every year. That's all they do is win. They won an SEC title, getting ready for the NCAA Indoor National Championships coming up here in Fayetteville. So again, a big weekend. It's a good Monday. Yes. You know, you just walk into this Monday, maybe standing up a little taller if you're a Razorback fan. Somebody, again, suggested on the Ask Mike in a question that it might be hard to keep Hunter Yurachek. I mean, as they continue to win, and these people will notice, and we want that guy as our AD. And then you're going to have to pay him some money to keep him. Gymnastics is doing well, setting program records. So, tip your cap. Success is great, but when you have it, it comes at a cost. And let me explain a little bit about how this affects the fans, because we've seen this in Baum Stadium and the policy they came up with, because they have about 8,000 season ticket requests and they were able to fill 4,000. And so they had to figure out a way to make kind of everybody happy. And what ended up happening was the prices went up. And a lot of these people felt like, hey, I'm a long-time season ticket holder. I was buying season tickets over here at baseball because I could afford it. And I wasn't one of these big donors that could afford the football and basketball tickets, but I'm a loyalist over at Baum Stadium. And now look what they're doing. They're coming over here and really upping the price on baseball. Well, number one, they've got a revenue issue with COVID, and they got to make it up. But number two, when your program gets better, that's what happens. I understand there's a loyalty thing. I was a baseball fan when it wasn't popular to be a baseball fan with all these football fans. But you've got Razorback football and basketball fans who have money, who have season tickets to those games, who are now looking at Baum and saying, well, hey, I could contribute several $1,000s. Can I get good seats? So the athletic department, I don't think, is going to come in and displace a longtime season ticket holder at Baum, but at the same time, they may tell that person it's going to cost you more money now because the product is in more demand, and you face a choice. You know, you can say they're not being loyal to you, but they're a business, and that's how businesses operate. Yeah. You're absolutely right, and it's hard to complain when your teams are winning. Absolutely. So that's just kind of how that works, supply and demand a little bit. All right. It's been a good week. Past week, it's been a good Monday. So, Mike, thanks for joining us. Thank you guys for joining us as well as we kind of talk about the highlights in men's basketball. Of course, men's basketball playing South Carolina, Texas A&M before the end of their season. The women get the SEC tournament started on Thursday against Ole Miss, and then baseball hosting Murray State this week. 3-game series against Murray State. Softball's got the Woo Pig Classic. They got like 7 games, so I don't remember all of their. Did we talk about the COVID thing? We didn't. You want to give? I know a lot of these people would love to hear that. Obviously, with Asa Hutchinson's announcement on Friday, it gives a lot of excitement to what
things could look like for fans, for sure.
They've had these COVID crowd mandates, and they've existed for bars, restaurants, but they've also existed for these so-called large venue events like, football this past fall, and basketball this winter, and baseball now this spring as it comes into spring. And these have been mandates. There was, okay, we're going to let you have 4,000 people in Bud Walton Arena. We're going to let you have 4,000 people in Baum Walker. We're going to let you have, I think it was 16 or 18,000 for football. That's a mandate. Mm-hmm. Well, Governor Hutchinson came out last week and said, all right, all of these mandates now are guidelines. They aren't hard and fast rules. We're going to let these bars and restaurants and people that have these large venue crowds, we're going to let them decide what they want to do. We've still got our guidelines, mm-hmm. and we would appreciate if you follow the guidelines, but you're kind of on your own now. So the athletic department got all these calls from these fans that haven't been able to get tickets because of COVID. And now they're inundated with requests. Well, I called over there today and I found out the athletic department, technically, if they really wanted to do it, they could just open up Bud Walton Arena Saturday for the A&M game and say, anybody who wants to come, you can come until we fill it up. Mm-hmm. They're not going to do that, and they're not going to do it with the bomb. They do anticipate more people being able to go to the game on Saturday for the basketball game, and more people to be able to go to Baum Stadium in the coming weeks. They're going to have to kind of negotiate this with the governor's COVID committee. They're going to go back in and say, all right, what if we allowed 2,000 more people in Baum Walker? What if we allowed 2,000 more people in basketball? Would that be a risk? And then they'll tell them what they think, and then they'll go along with that. The good news is all of that stuff, if COVID numbers continue to drop the way they have been, all of those protocols that were mandates and are now suggestions will go away. Mm-hmm. And that means the mask mandate is gone. They can't, you don't have to wear a mask. Some people will continue to do that, and I understand that. But also, then if you're a bar, restaurant, or the University of Arkansas or any other school that has these large venue events, you can use your own best judgment and decide how many people you want. So we'll see how much that, I think a lot of that's going to depend on how good the numbers are with regard to COVID. Yep. It's been dropping, but it really needs to drop a lot more this month. And as more and more people get vaccinated, and I've been vaccinated, I've had one, I got another one coming up 17th of this month. And I don't know. I just feel good. You can't get one yet because you're with child, and that's a dangerous thing to do. They tell you not to do it.
Don't want to do that quite yet. But
I can tell you that to get vaccinated, and there are people that are afraid of vaccinations. My sister told me, don't get it. It could be a bad thing for you. Mm-hmm. But I don't. I believe in science, and I think it'll work. And it just took a big weight off my shoulders to know that I'm already involved in the process. And my arm got a little bit sore the first day, nothing. Didn't feel a thing. Second day I woke up, the arm was a little bit sore. I don't know, I was a little bit sleepy, but it was my day off, and I stayed up pretty late the night before, so I don't know if that had anything to do with COVID. But I'm fine now.
Yeah.
And so now I wait for the second vaccination, which is supposed to affect you a little more.
A little more. We'll see. Hopefully not too much for you.
Them both out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with us. I appreciate you guys hanging out with us as well. And of course, we hope you have a great rest of your day. That's going to end our broadcast.